Hey Adam, how are you?
Faraz, doing well. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. It's a pleasure to have you on and be a guest.
Oh, I'm very excited, very excited. When you asked me to be on here, I couldn't wait for us to get this on the calendar. So happy to
Amazing.
have the conversation.
Have you done something like this before in the past?
I have not. This is my
Ah, cool.
first podcast, so
Ah,
really excited.
amazing, amazing. Well, it'd be good to, I think most people in the Americas probably know who you are, but we're taking, it's a global audience, so it'd be good to kind of get a bit of introduction to yourself, who you are, where you're from.
Yeah, absolutely. So Adam Kenney, based in Long Island, New York. I'm a regional sales director for the global sales team here in the Americas for the East Coast. So my team covers our commercial segment all the way from Maine down to Florida and everywhere between on the East Coast. Been with OutSystems for coming up on 6 years. Funny enough, I started out in the Boston office and relocated about 6 months in down to New York, where I started as a commercial sales rep and then went to enterprise and then handled our public sector business for a little bit and then most recently our commercial business. So
Nice.
been a wild journey and still kicking.
Yeah. And why was there a certain reason behind New York, or was that something you just wanted? Are you originally from there, or what was the
No,
idea?
no, it's a good question. I actually am from originally the Boston area. Was living
Okay.
in Boston after college for a number of years, and my now wife
Yeah.
is from New York, so I kind of lost the battle of who ends up where. But it kind of worked out because OutSystems, my first boss here, Mike Aristian,
Oh,
was hiring for Metro New York. So
oh, nice.
interviewed, let them know that I had aspirations to move down here, and it kind of worked out.
Nice. Nice. That's great.
Yeah.
And rewinding kind of back, what your career has been heavily sales driven,
Hmm.
and I think I don't know from my background sales as well, and usually when people are in school, for example, they then talk about when I grow up, I want to be in sales, right? It kind of
Right.
sometimes it's certain a job that has made them think of, yeah, actually, I'm good at sales,
Yeah.
or they've done something in university that's made them think about it. When did your kind of interest in sales become apparent, and how did you kind of pursue that?
Yeah. So funny enough, I went to school to be a doctor. I was pre-med,
Wow.
and then as I was going through college, I kind of recognized that maybe a doctor wasn't the path for me, but I still
Oh,
really liked the concept of being in the medical industry. So I interned with a medical device distributor one summer and then continued through my last 2 years of school interning for them. So quickly pivoted to more of that sales
mm.
atmosphere, thinking that I'd go into like medical device sales or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
biologics sales. So looking for a job out of college, I had a buddy who was a couple years older than me working for this startup in Boston selling Java productivity software,
Yeah.
and started there as a BDR and have been here ever since. You know.
Yeah, yeah. And when you were kind of selling the tech side of things, because obviously there's this thing about, yeah, you're selling, but you need to understand a level of technology as well, right? So
100%.
how was that kind of process for you of kind of also learning? Because it's a one of those skill sets where, okay, you need to be great at selling, but you need to obviously also understand the lingo, right, of how to speak. If you're going to be speaking to tech leaders, so you need to, if they ask you questions, you need to be able to actually know what you're talking about. So how was
Yeah.
that kind of learning process for you?
It was in the beginning, it was definitely trial by fire.
Yeah.
The good thing about my first company, Zero Turnaround, was we were selling to developers and,
Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily CIOs right out the gate. So you really
Mm.
got to have conversations. And, the biggest thing in sales is to be genuinely intellectually
Yeah.
curious, right?
Mm.
So being able to have a conversation, sit back and listen. So we were
Yeah.
talking about like IDEs and Java frameworks and um, all the fun stuff. So being able to get in the weeds really helped. And then fast forward to OutSystems where you're dealing with the full SDLC,
Yeah.
you have to learn everything on the fly, especially when you're
Yeah.
selling a new concept of software development, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And talking about the new concept, when the OutSystems opportunity came, had you even heard of low code before or know what low code was?
You know what? It's funny enough because towards the end of my tenure, so, started Zero Turnaround. Zero
Mm.
Turnaround got acquired by a company called Rogue Wave Software. And then a year
Yeah.
after that, Rogue Wave got acquired by a company called Perforce Software, which really specializes in developer
Yeah.
solutions. So when we were selling JRebel, I started having conversations with some of our customers, and they were actually asking me if I had heard about OutSystems
Ah.
and low code. And at the
Yeah. Yeah.
time, rapid application development, or
Yeah.
RAD, was like a big
Yeah.
concept still towards low code before that name took over.
Yeah.
So it just so happens that one of my best buds, Ian Casella, who I had worked with for
Yeah.
a number of years, had just gone over to OutSystems and was actively recruiting me. So
Yeah.
it kind of worked out. And then obviously was introduced to the world that is OutSystems and low code application development.
Yeah. And obviously selling low code is not the same as selling traditional software. It's
No,
you're selling disruptive software, right? Something that, like you said,
100%.
people don't know. How was that kind of process for you coming in to OutSystems, selling low code, and what kind of strategies, worked best for you when introducing that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a disruptive technology because you're basically telling folks that the status quo isn't something that's going to
Yeah.
work for them anymore. So it's a bit of a culture shock, uh, and at the same time, it's definitely a top down and bottom up approach. Like CIO isn't going to make a decision strategically if their developers and development teams aren't on board and sold.
Mm.
So it's really, really important to have those conversations up front, understand what the concerns are, and
Yeah.
then being able to quickly prove out to the folks who are actually going to be doing the development that, hey, you can still leverage your skill sets. You're just not focusing so much on the syntax as much as you are the
Yeah.
solutioning now.
Yeah. And in the early days, did you find that quite challenging, kind of selling something totally different? Where I'm assuming, okay, 6 years ago, so how well was even low code? I know now it's kind of everywhere, right? Like
Yeah,
everyone knows about it, but 6 years ago, and even now, I think everyone knows about low code, but they put all low code platforms in the one box, which is not the case,
exactly.
right? So, I mean, I
Exactly.
can imagine 6 years ago it was even more difficult.
Oh yeah, no one knew what low code was. So it was definitely difficult because there was a lot of education that had to be done
Mm.
before there was alignment to the business and to IT and strategic priorities. So sales cycles were long. Sometimes, people that you had conversations with in 2019 would come back in 2021 saying, "Hey, like
Yeah.
we want to pick these conversations up now."
Yeah.
So it's like the light bulb went off.
Yeah, yeah. And what were some of the kind of, at the time and even now, some of the biggest kind of misconceptions, and a lot of skeptics around still today, that you come across when you're dealing with, CIOs and other leaders.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of nailed it in the sense that the low code market over the past 6, 10 years has gotten really saturated.
Yeah.
And what people don't really spend time, learning is that, well, there's different types of low code.
Yeah.
There's no code solutions where it's really dedicated to more business users. There's low code SaaS extension. So think of like the Salesforces or
Yeah.
the ServiceNows extending their SaaS offerings. And
Sure.
then there's pure low code, like an OutSystems, where you're able to develop the solutions that you do with Java or .NET just 6 to 10 times faster on average. So it's really about people didn't really think that it can handle complex applications. They were more focused on smaller departmental use
Yeah.
cases, which is fine to start.
Yeah.
Uh, they also, like I said before, it was culture shock.
Mm.
Developers didn't think that they'd be able to do what they can do
Yeah.
today, using traditional methodologies. And once they get their hands on and deliver their first project, they're really, um, open to a brand new set of skills that they maybe didn't know. The best thing is like, you're dealing with a back end developer who now can do full stack development for both mobile and web. So it's really cool to see when the light bulb moment goes off for these
Yeah.
folks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people I've spoken to, architects, for example, who join you in these meetings as well,
Yeah,
and they talk about the light bulb moment of when you're in a room and if when you build something in front of them, that you can kind of see the face change of actually, oh wow, like, this, I didn't realize you could do that fast.
100%. It's great to see, and it's honestly like for me one of the greatest things that I point to is I work with some really smart um, solution architects like Rob Scotta, for instance,
Mm.
was a developer and architect at Travelers Insurance.
Yeah.
And he talks about his light bulb moment and being able to, solution things on OutSystems a lot faster. And, now he's working for us. So,
Yeah, yeah,
it's a great story, and it really helps to resonate what, like, cliche, but the art of
yeah.
the possible with the
Yeah,
platform.
yeah. And do you find now today, I think obviously, all the analysts talk about low code, and OutSystems is always top right, for all the kind of, quadrants and everything like that.
Sure.
When you're in these conversations on the kind of new business side, do you feel there's more people, businesses now who are actually aware of OutSystems or even, low code where, before it might have been out who, or like who are these guys from Portugal trying to disrupt the US market.
Yeah. Um, the concept of low code is definitely well known
Yeah.
across the globe. With OutSystems, even though we've been a leader for
Mm.
years, the Americas is still a relatively green market
Yeah.
and territory for us. But I think it's like for most low code providers,
Yeah.
unless you're a Microsoft or a
Yeah.
Salesforce or ServiceNow, it really is green because at least from my perspective, EMEA and APAC have adopted low code years
Long
before
time ago. Yeah.
the Americas did. So it's a lot
Yeah.
more mature market over there. And having the conversations with my counterparts over there, it's definitely shown. So there's still a ton of potential here for us, and it's our clientele is certainly growing, and the community definitely is growing as well, which is exciting to
Yeah.
see. The developer days that we do in big
Yeah.
cities like New
Yeah.
York City, seeing the attendance grow, seeing the solutions and complexities that are achieved with the platform and the business outcomes, it's really inspiring.
Yeah, that's great. And can you talk about some of the kind of biggest deals you've won in your time at OutSystems? Because obviously, and a big thing with OutSystems growing is obviously customer stories, right? And the bigger brands you see, the more it'll help convince kind of other customers to be on board. But can you talk about some personal ones that you've kind of brought to the table yourself?
Yeah, in the private sector, one of the largest contracts that I was able to work with the customer on, it was a major reinsurance company based in the Northeast. It's a very similar story, right, in the sense that, they spoke to us, I think in 2018, 2019, and then out of the blue, they came back around 2021 saying, "Hey, we
Yeah.
strategically we need to make a shift." And
Mm.
we spent the next year working through proving out the platform, seeing
Mm.
how it fits within their ecosystem, seeing how not just the technology but the people and the process aspects need to change in order to allow this company to be successful moving forward. And fast forward, I think they've been a customer for almost 4 or 5 years now, and they've
Wow.
built over 100 applications, mission critical to their business, customer facing,
Yeah.
and now they're really dipping their toe into what OutSystems can contribute in terms of their AI strategy. And that can mean a
Mm.
lot of different
Yeah.
things, but it's really exciting to see. The past couple years, I've spent supporting OutSystems public sector business and
Uh-huh.
working with a large state up here in the Northeast where I've built some really good relationships
Uh-huh.
and have seen some great successes. Again, on the foundational transformation of the people process and the technology aspect, A number of agencies have adopted the platform and have built out a number of applications to support constituent experience, legacy modernization of some relatively large scaling solutions. So, really proud of the work that we've done there and excited to see how that continues to transform.
Yeah. I think what's great is, and that's the beauty of sales is a lead is never dead, right?
Yeah,
It's about kind of staying on top of it. What's great is obviously the platform's forever evolving. So
100%.
you've got several touch points you can go back with, even if it's not a yes now. You can always present something. Hey, we're now doing this, and sales cycles can take years, right? It's not kind of a quick win kind of sales process, and I feel personally they're the ones that I enjoy it because obviously you've worked so hard to kind of get them versus the quick wins.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I literally had a prospective customer reach out to me, send me an email about 2 weeks ago. And we had conversations back, I think, in 2021 where they were just dipping their toe
Yeah,
into a low code strategy.
yeah,
They ended up going with a solution that they already had in house, but fast forward 4 years, they've run into technical limitations with
yeah,
that platform and pricing constraints, and they want to pivot and expand their
yeah,
strategy around low code software development. So to your point, 4 years of them
yeah,
doing it
yeah.
on their own
Wow.
before coming
Yeah,
back,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's great. That's great. And have you had any deals where you've walked away thinking no chance they're going to work with us, right? It's impossible. They're not convinced, which have somehow turned around and you've closed.
Yeah, I mean, there's one customer. It's a big CPG company globally, and we got in late to the game. They didn't know about OutSystems,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
speaking with a Gartner, they actually found out, oh, okay, they're a leader. We should
yeah,
probably give them a fair shake. So we ended up coming into their evaluation rather late. They were looking at some large like some namestay
yeah,
platforms that we know about today, and we knew it was a long shot, but we also knew what they were looking for and the differentiators that OutSystems could provide them, and we ended up winning their business, and they've been a
nice.
customer for 4 years now. So
Wow.
um, it's great aligning with the customers business goals, but also their technical current limitations and ideal future state, and seeing how we
Yeah.
can come up with a strategy to support that. So I was really proud of that one.
Yeah, yeah. And for yourself, you've sold traditional, you're selling low code. Now, I'd say 2 years now, kind of the hot topic is AI, right? Gen AI, and that's kind of something you have to add to your tool belt
Yeah.
as well, and how has that kind of, introduction of AI influenced your sales approach because obviously, I went to Gartner last year,
Yeah.
in Vegas,
Yep.
and the sessions were heavily AI focused, right? And it was all about AI. I went to a lot of the low code sessions, but most
Yes.
people were there for AI because they're all kind of figure out what's going to happen, But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
imagine you guys are the front line of selling, right? And
Hmm.
people don't know what's AI going to do for low code, traditional, their jobs, or whatever, How's that kind of changed? How's that one, that impact been on your role? But two, how have you had to kind of change your approach?
Yeah, it's funny. I was also at the Gartner conference and talking to some of our customers who were there. They basically told me if they hear the term AI one more time, they're going to throw up. So it's funny because AI has been around for years
Yeah,
and it's just becoming this big buzzword.
yeah,
But it's funny because when people come to you and ask, "Hey, what do you guys do for AI?" I like reverting the question back to them. It's like, well, like, what are you guys considering for your AI strategy? And they don't really have an answer. They're
yeah,
still very much in the education
yeah,
phase. So luckily for us, we've been doing it for a number of years, both like within the platform itself, supporting developers with AI assisted development
yeah,
or technical debt and security
yeah,
review using AI. Um, but also extensions to be able to leverage all the different AI services out there, whether it's, OCR or Azure Cognitive Services. Like we've been doing that forever. Now you throw in the the Gen AI
Yeah,
aspect. And,
yeah.
OutSystems, credit to our product team, was ahead of
Mm.
the game. And, we have Mentor, which
Yeah.
is in phase one, but still using requirements docs or prompt engineering, being able to spin up prototypes and applications. So it's keeping us competitive, but
Mm.
it's really having the conversation with the customer of, okay, like when you say AI, what does that mean to you?
Mm.
Um, because sometimes like they're not looking for Gen AI.
Yeah.
They're actually looking for like intelligent document processing, or they're
Mm.
looking for still like automation aspects. Um, for us, the biggest thing regarding AI that OutSystems can provide, and I don't think people are talking enough about it, is governance.
Mm.
Having a single stop platform that allows you to incorporate all these different AI services or LLMs to be able to test, but also govern what makes sense for each use case, positions us strongly in the market as people start to mature what exactly their AI strategy is going to be. And, luckily for us, we have the opportunity to be a good partner to our customers to identify that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head with, a lot of people actually don't know what they want with AI, right? It's kind of just because everyone's talking about it, they feel they need to be in that conversation
A
and
hundred
bringing it up.
percent.
And have you found that your sales cycles are taking a bit longer now because of that?
It depends.
Mm.
If people are coming in asking about AI and what
Mm.
we do, yes,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
like I said before, when low code was just a buzz,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it was just
yeah,
becoming a thing, it took a level of education before you could even get
yeah,
into alignment on a potential partnership.
yeah,
So when it comes to that, especially, with our release of Mentor and,
mm,
and all those capabilities, yeah, the sales cycles are increasing, but at the same time, we still have plenty of customers and folks coming in talking
yeah,
about legacy modernization or just
mm,
having to deliver solutions quicker because one, they can't hire software
yeah,
developers, or, they have a portfolio of applications with vulnerabilities that they need to get off of by a certain date. So, um, I think that's a long-winded answer of saying it
yeah,
depends. It really depends
yeah.
on what people are looking for and why.
Yeah, yeah. And you touched on Mentor, and I was there in Netherlands when they presented, when Paolo presented
Hmm.
Mentor and spoke to a lot of kind of customers after who were quite excited to see where it would lead. How
Yeah.
has it been since then? Because obviously that was just whoever people in the room would have saw it and people on LinkedIn would have saw the post about it. But you guys are probably presenting it all the time to customers. How's the kind of feedback been on the kind of sales side? We're presenting that to customers.
Yeah, I mean, I view it in conversations with customers, it's a great way to shift everything left.
Yeah,
And what I mean by that is, you know, the the issue that's always been in place is the divide between business and IT.
yeah,
Um, so being able to collaborate with the business early on about truly capturing what they're looking for allows, a true agile process, which OutSystems aligns very well to. And now with Mentor, where you can sit down with, the business or a business analyst and say, hey, like, here's the requirements doc that we've gathered. Is this what you're looking for? And spinning up an
mm,
application in 5 minutes, or at least a prototype,
yeah,
they say yes. Or, hey, no, we are actually looking for, this format instead, and you can change that. But then shift that over to a professional development environment where the developers can take that and finish the rest of the 20%.
yeah,
It's cutting down on that iteration time to be
yeah,
able to get to production as quickly as possible. On the other hand, though, we have customers. I was having a conversation with a customer last week, and they said, hey, listen, like Mentor is really cool, but you guys still allow us to go so much faster than we would with traditional development.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
like, instead of spending, you know, 2 days or 2 weeks developing an application, Mentor allows me to do it in a day or a week. That's
yeah,
great, but it's still super fast regardless
yeah,
of with low
yeah,
code. So, it's super exciting to see
yeah,
everything, but, you know, I still don't want the value of a platform like OutSystems to get lost in the buzz
Yeah.
of AI
Yeah.
or generative AI.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people forget, that before, AI, Gen AI, like low code was already, you know, 8 to 10x or whatever X you
Oh,
want to call it,
100%.
right? Quicker. So yes, AI will make it even faster, but
Hmm.
they're forgetting that low code's already kind of done that aspect
Exactly.
of kind of making a developer's role, and businesses deliver things much quicker.
Right.
And shifting more kind of to the sales side now, and kind of talking about, we often hire salespeople for partners who are looking to
Hmm.
kind of hire salespeople.
Yep.
And something we come across sometimes is, when we approach, we don't only approach people who have low code selling experience. We'll approach people like you used to be selling traditional software, right? And
Yeah.
try and convince them to join a partner to sell low code services. And we've had conversations with people who'll say, selling low code's too difficult. I don't want to kind of get involved in that space. So, what would be kind of one piece of advice you'd give someone who is going to go ahead with it and they're starting their career with low code sales?
Yeah, it goes back to one of the things I said, and I've learned this through a lot of great leaders that I've had: Ian Casella, Mike Aristian, Mark Thompson, Michael Benson, a number of folks within OutSystems over the years. And intellectual curiosity trumps all. Being able to kind of take a step back from just talking technology alignment and really understanding the business impact of the current state and what the future state could look like, maybe what it means personally to the people that you're working with to be able to achieve something, and then aligning everything else to that. The other thing too is people get so bogged down on the technology, like features and functionalities, when in reality we're selling a strategy around solutioning. And I know you've had him on the podcast, but Mark DeArmond has like opened my
Yes.
eyes when it comes to
Yeah.
like that aspect
Yeah.
of, OutSystems is one piece of the puzzle. If you don't have the people or the process aspects aligned to the overall goals, it's not going to be successful. Whether it's
Yeah.
OutSystems or Microsoft
Yeah.
or ServiceNow or Salesforce, it can be the same. So going in with that in mind, those two things in mind, have really helped me. And it's certainly something that I continue to try and craft over the tenure that I've been here at OutSystems and in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. And is there, one or many, up to you, kind of lessons you've learned, during your kind of sales career from deals that didn't close, they've kind of made you, it's continuous learning, and whatever you kind of, the losses are always kind of value and gained of what not to do in the future. Is there any kind of big lessons you've learned that's helped you become a better seller?
Yeah, the biggest thing is slow down to speed up. You
Mm,
know,
mm,
Obviously we want to close partnerships and get people humming, but there's a lot of things, especially nowadays, there's so many complex buying processes with these bigger companies or even these smaller companies, to be honest. So aligning on everything, whether it's the pain of the current state, the goals from the business and IT of the future state, the top-down approach of being aligned and having that executive alignment with the economic buyer, the bottom-up approach of aligning to make sure that you've addressed all the concerns of the developers and the development
yeah.
team, to aligning to what vendor onboarding looks like, MSA negotiation, DPA. I mean, especially nowadays with AI, like the
Mm,
negotiations around that stuff, like it takes a long time.
yeah.
So I guess addressing all of that stuff up front, running things in parallel and
Mm,
over communicating and constantly validating
mm,
with the folks that you're working with, uh, has definitely been more important now than it ever has been. And I guess the last thing is quantifiable business impact, making sure that the juice is worth the squeeze,
yeah.
not just for us, because we're investing time, resources, and
Yeah.
money, but also the customer. Like,
Yeah.
Will they be able to convince their CFO that allocating budget towards this is
Yeah.
worth it to the business? So
Yeah.
there's a lot. I mean, the biggest thing is you have to be a sponge and constantly
Yeah.
be able to be coachable and learn. So I'm continuing to figure that out as I go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I've obviously, I've seen your stats, and I've obviously I've seen your from your LinkedIn, your growth within OutSystems, and even prior to that. What do you think is, because it is very hard to be consistent, right? So, it's not easy to consistently hit budgets, targets, and it's the stress of that can sometimes
Yeah.
make people crumble. What's do you think is the secret to being consistently successful in sales?
Um, it's a good question. I mean, sales is an individual sport, but it's
Yeah,
also a team sport.
yeah,
And we always say here, like, you're never losing alone.
yeah,
And what we mean by that is you have so many different partners of the business that are supporting you in these sales cycles, whether it's solution architecture, partners, professional services, customer success,
yeah,
you name it. And you're kind of the quarterback for that. So over
yeah,
communication is definitely key. Constant revalidation with the folks that you're working with on the customer side. Um, at the end of the day, a customer is going to purchase on their natural timeline. So
yeah,
making sure that you're having those conversations early. Um, it's tough. It's a tough it's a tough sport. It's a
yeah,
tough
yeah,
job,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I think with that mindset of team over communication, not being afraid to call out the risks early,
mm,
call out the gaps, and then
yeah,
work together with the team to come up with plans. Whether it's looping in an executive like Carlos
yeah,
to have a conversation with the CIO or the COO, looping in solution architecture, looping in partners if we see gaps in
mm,
like the people or process aspect.
yeah,
Being upfront, transparent about that, and working together, come up with plans has definitely helped. Instead of getting happy ears and ignoring the
yeah,
risks,
yeah,
ignoring the red flags. That to me has bred a little bit of success for us. But again, constantly evolving and changing as the market
mm,
and the buying process changes. But yeah, I mean that's kind of what our motion is today.
yeah. And you mentioned teamwork, and I'm interested to know because obviously I think it's spoken wildly, and you're leading a team now, and there's this thing about the best salespeople doesn't mean they'll be the best sales managers, right? There's this common conversation around just because you're a great seller doesn't mean you'll be able to manage a team
Yeah,
and run a team because obviously even though there's the teamwork aspect of it when you're a seller, there's also your individual aspect of financials, targets, things like that. How, how,
100%.
how have you find that, one, what's your opinion on that as someone who's done it? And how have you had to kind of shift or change your style?
I'll let you know when I figure it out. No, I'm joking. But
Yeah,
I called this out in the beginning when I first
yeah,
made the transition, and it's still relatively new to me, so
yeah,
I'm constantly learning from some of
yeah,
the other leaders here. But the biggest thing for me that I have to be aware of is not to micromanage, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
think communication and strategic planning is key with the folks on your team, but each person has a different way of working, so you kind of have to align to what works and
yeah,
what doesn't work for them. Um, so it's definitely a work in progress for me, but I'm definitely someone who likes to get hands on. I'm not one of the types of folks who likes to sit back and armchair quarterback. Um, so it's something I'm continuing to work with to make sure
yeah,
I'm not a
yeah,
micromanager.
yeah,
But we do have a good plan in place. We're calling out the risks. We're
yeah,
forecasting appropriately, and we're constantly over communicating.
yeah. Great, great. And is there anything, a lot of people will do things kind of, you know, with such a kind of high pressured role, you need kind of things outside of work to kind of help you switch off, right? Switch off or help your focus. Is there anything you do outside of work to kind of allow you to, obviously, I know you've got a family, a young family, but, with that and anything else you do that kind of helps you switch off and then, when you're in work mode, perform at your best.
Yeah, the gym has always been a big part of my life since I've been maybe 13. So I go to the gym 5 a.m.
Wow.
most, if not every
Yeah.
day, and right before my daughter Avery wakes up. That has always helped me kind of keep calm, cool, collect. Like to golf, not well, but
Mm.
I like to golf. Um, and then I have two dogs that, I love taking for walks
Yeah.
and just listening to podcasts. That's really kind of helped me be even keel. I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of great folks who, some of them like Ian Casella or,
Yeah.
Dave Fruling's another person who I, worked at ZT and have kept
Uh-huh.
in touch with. They were a groomsman in my wedding. So it's like
Oh,
the
wow. Cool.
relationships that you
Yeah.
build, it
Yeah.
doesn't really feel like a job when you're
Yeah.
working with folks like that. It's just more of, life.
Yeah.
So it's those different culminations have helped me over the years.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely that's a great thing about sales that you meet so many people that end up kind of, you forget they're like I work with a lot of your customers who, you know, we've gone from dealing on email to Teams to WhatsApp, right? And it's kind of not even talking about business, and they end up becoming friends,
A
and like
hundred
you said,
percent.
groomsmen, and I think that's the beauty of sales that your network is forever growing, whether it be professional or even just personal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was texting earlier this week with a client and laughing about a video of him falling that his ring camera caught. But we've we've gone fishing together. It's
Wow,
like the
cool. Yeah,
relationships that you build with the
yeah,
clients are just as important as the relationships you build with the people you work with. So
yeah,
I full heartedly agree with that.
yeah, yeah. And one thing I wanted to talk to obviously you've even though you did pre-med and you but then went straight into sales, right?
Uh-huh.
After that,
Yeah.
what's your opinion on do you think sales is like just a natural talent? The person needs to have that kind of personality in it and be able to the type of personality I'm talking about,
Yeah.
or it can be taught. So it could be someone who hasn't done sales and they've decided, okay, the money's good. I'm gonna think about doing sales. Do you think it's a skill set that can be taught and coached?
I think coachability is probably one of the biggest, things I look for. And I mean, I always
Uh,
felt personally as to why I've had a little bit of success in sales. Being competitive, being able to work on a team, being able to be coachable. Those are all things like, listen, you can't teach drive,
yeah,
but you can teach the software development life cycle. Like to your point, I went to school for pre-med. I didn't go to school for software development,
yeah,
but I've learned enough over the years by being intellectually curious to figure out how to best align to meet customer needs. And I think those are probably some of the biggest attributes you could look for when trying to hire someone. Again, still I'm only like
yeah.
10,
Still
11 years
learning.
into
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
so
yeah,
still learning, still getting coached.
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And I think something you touched on before about obviously, communicating with, you mentioned Mark, Mark Diarman, I think it's for salespeople, it's great to have people like that kind of close by to kind of lean on because whenever I speak to Mark, you learn something, you're learning, you're,
100%.
you're continuous learning. And it's about, if you're able to take that in and being willing to, I think willing to learn is definitely a big aspect, right? Of even in your own time, trying to kind of gain as much knowledge can help you be successful.
100%. And to your point, like when you have people like Mark or Brian Smith who have years of experience of
Uh,
software development and the life cycle, and then they're able to communicate how OutSystems aligns, not just from the technology perspective, but
yeah,
everything else. you got to be a sponge
Yeah,
and soak up what they're saying,
yeah, yeah. And finally, looking ahead, have you got any? I know you're kind of not too long into your current role, but is there kind of any specific targets or goals you have for yourself, in the short to long term future?
I mean, yeah, the idea of getting to the top someday and running a business is certainly up there. I still have a long way to go in terms of learning and
Yeah,
gaining that type of experience, but I'm enjoying the ride. I'm enjoying the journey. OutSystems has certainly given me a great 6 years,
yeah.
and looking forward to seeing what the future holds.
Amazing. Well, yeah, it was great to hear your journey and I didn't know the pre-med thing, so that's really interesting to kind of know and see how kind of the pivot you took, kind of just, and where it's led and at least it's worked out, right? It would like so you've done well, you've grown within the business and I look forward to continue kind of tracking you, kind of, speaking with you now that we're in the same time zone as well and hopefully
Yes,
working with you a bit more closely.
absolutely. Definitely looking forward to it. Welcome to the US. Florida is going to treat you well, I'm sure.
I hope so. Thanks, Adam.
All right, Faraz.
Appreciate it.